What is up, you guys? This is All Day Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you an Omega build set video for Iceman. So keep in mind, this is going to be a melee build, melee freeze and energy or crushing build. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with his gear. So I have 3 pieces of Oath of the Destroyer, 1 piece of Blessing of Blackagar Boltagon, and then the last piece you're going to want to go for is the Frozen Stone. The reason why you want to get Frozen Stone, for obvious reasons, it's Iceman, but the main reason is because when you use your signature on the next ice ability you use, or ice power, it'll proc a perma-freeze ability or permafrost, which will generally do about 30,000 plus damage depending on what your build base damage is, but about 30,000 damage or higher is what it'll generally do, and it's a nice giant AoE ability as well. So now the reason why I went with Blessing of Blackagar Boltagon is because your shatter abilities are energy, so every time you use a shatter ability you're going to be getting a 100% crit hit chance with that as well. And it says crit hits with energy powers disable this effect for 4 seconds, so you have a 4-second cooldown with getting that 100% crit chance every time you shatter an enemy. And then 3 piece of Oath of the Destroyer, mainly because you can go with 3 pieces or 2 pieces. If you go 2 pieces, then I would go with Gamora's Garment, but the reason why I went with 3 is because I don't necessarily think I need the crit hit that much, because I am at 3008 energy crit hit. My critical hit rating is pretty low though, so I definitely do need my general critical hit rating is pretty low, so that would definitely help if I could get something like that. But anyways, with the Oath of the Destroyer, it definitely helps a lot because all of your attacks are pretty much melee. And it'll be pretty easy for you to build up the stacks, especially if you have high crit hit ratings. So if you have high crit hit, you'll be able to get these stacks with no problem. And let's see, for my medallion, it was either between Mega Sentinel Medallion or Craven Medallion. I had to test the 2 and I decided Craven Medallion was better, mainly because the Mega Sentinel Medallion is only good off of energy damage, but Craven Medallion, so Shatter is also considered melee as well. So the more stacks you have of Craven's Medallion, the better. With Mega Sentinel's Medallion, I'm not saying it's bad, it's just the only problem is you won't be able to build those stacks up quick enough. But other than that, either or works perfectly fine. And then my relic, I went with Relic of Asgard for the melee, and I got modified Cargo's Rewrites. Black Tom's Cosmically Enhanced Shalala, and Cosmically Enhanced Circlet of Sidorak. So my skills, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I'm using Frozen Blades on X, and then Snowplow on L2 Circle, Ice Slick on Square, Frost Nova on Circle, Absolute Zero, his signature on L2 Triangle, Frozen Lance on Triangle, Frozen Orb on L2 Square, and Glacial Slam on L2X. So you have you only have 2 abilities that are considered ranged, which is Frozen Orb and I guess Absolute Zero. It does not count as anything. So you only have 1 ability that counts as ranged, which is Frozen Orb. But don't worry, you're not gonna rely on this to give you your stacks, because Ice Slick counts as melee, and it's gonna be each tick. Every time Ice Slick gets a critical, that counts towards your Brutal Strikes. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much all. And then you have Frozen Blades, which hits pretty fast too. And then you have all your shatters that'll give you your guaranteed criticals. Now for my talents, I'm using Ice Crafted Weapons, melee power damage increased by 10%, damage reduction increased by 8%, Chillblade transforms into Frozen Blades. Frozen Blades is a melee attack with a higher damage output. Icicles transform into Icy Arsenal. Icy Arsenal is a melee cooldown attack with multiple charges. Icy Arsenal is actually a really good shatter ability. but it's just kind of I don't necessarily like using it too much because of the fact that it's too you have to be kind of really close up rather than frozen lance. You can be at a range and it'll still count as a melee. But Icy Arsenal does a lot of damage, and there is 3 charges on it. The next one is Blizzard. Frozen Orb gains the bonus damage as if it were a summon power, and the orb will now spawn at the targeted enemy and remain there for 6 seconds. Yeah, so that's the one I used. So what that means is it'll just, when you shoot it, instead of it going through enemies and piercing them, it's just going to hit the first enemy it gets contacted with, and it'll stay there. And the good thing about that is you'll be able to consistently keep freezing the enemy, because that's what Frozen Orb does, is it will always freeze the enemy. It'll freeze the enemy for a couple seconds, they get out of it, and then they go back right into it, which is really nice. Then I'm using Frost Nova. Flash Freeze transforms into Frost Nova. Frost Nova is a far-reaching melee attack, hitting all enemies in range. Icebreaker. Shatter effect damage is increased by 100%. Shatter power damage is increased by 5%. Arctic cooldown, Frozen Lance, and Frost Nova are the cooldowns are reduced by 2 seconds. When you shatter an enemy, Absolute Zero cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds. And then the last one is Renewing Cold. Ice Lick becomes a melee power. Ice Lick damage does 50% more damage. Ice Lick cooldown is increased by 2 seconds. While standing in Ice Lick's AoE, you get a 5% max health per second, and ice armor restored, 5% max ice armor per second. And now for synergies, I'm using Daredevil, Gambit, Hawkeye, Iceman. I am going to change these 2 characters because I'm not playing summons anymore. So Black Bolt, Black Panther, Daredevil, Gambit, Hawkeye, Iceman, Luke Cage, Scarlet Witch, Squirrel Girl, and Storm. Thinking I might. No, I don't. My bad, you guys. I'm just thinking of. I need Nightcrawlers for the most melee damage output. I'll probably end up switching her out for. Not exactly sure who to do this for. Thinking that I'll do it for Squirrel Girl. So I'm replacing Squirrel Girls with Nightcrawler. And then for my infinity points, I put all my points went straight into durability, because I don't see any reason to put anything into energy. I don't need any of those mastery points in there. And energy doesn't do anything for Iceman really. It restores his resource, but he doesn't use resources. At least with this build he doesn't. So I just put 10 points into durability, and then I put the rest of my points into brutal damage. Now to go and show you guys what each ability does. So this is X, this is your regular attack, and then this is Square, Ice Slick. It'll do a nice AoE and freeze the enemies. And then you got Circle, Frost Nova, and there goes the auto brutes going on right now. Alright, so you got Frost Nova, and then you got Frozen Lance, which does Shatter. And then you got L2 Square, which is the Frozen Orb. And as you can see, it's just going to keep the enemies frozen. They break out, and then they're back to being frozen. And then you've got the leaping ability, L2X, which does nice AoE as well, nice AoE Shatter. And then you've got your signature. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get my stacks built up, and you'll be able to see how often you'll be able to actually get your brutal strikes. So and there's the brutal strikes going off. As long as your AoE and damage over time stuff is still going on, it'll basically surpass the amount of time that the brutal strikes are allowed to be going. because the brutal strikes technically are only allowed to keep going up for 5 seconds. But as long as you've got the AoEs going off and damage over time still going off, then it'll count towards the it'll count towards your brutal strikes as well. But that's pretty much it for this build for Iceman. This is his melee build, not a summon build, not a range build. It's just straight melee, no summons. It is melee ice shatter build. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comments section. If you have anything else you'd like to know, or if you want to know, let me know down in the comment section or at alldayanydayone on my Twitter. And yeah, if this helped you out, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. This is All Day Any Day One on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.